My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 from Bristol, UK. Since I was a little girl, I dreamed of the day my dad would proudly hold my hand and walk me down the aisle. But dreams don't always survive reality. On the biggest day of my life, my father refused me that honor. His reason: he had drained his savings, our family's entire legacy, on my brother's endless debts and reckless lifestyle. That betrayal shattered my heart and exposed secrets I never imagined. This isn't just my wedding story. It's the story of how I learned the truth about my family. Broken hearts stay with me. This wedding betrayal turned into the most shocking revenge my father never expected. The morning sun streamed into my tiny apartment, making the ivory lace of my wedding dress glow like a dream. For years, I had saved every penny, planned every detail, and envisioned the moment I'd walk down the aisle with my dad. He wasn't just my father, he was my anchor, or so I believed. My fiancé, Daniel, had always admired the bond I shared with my dad. He used to joke that he'd have to share me with two men after marriage, himself and my father. But as the wedding drew closer, my dad grew strangely distant. Phone calls unanswered, meetings skipped, and conversations avoided. I told myself he was just overwhelmed. After all, weddings bring stress to everyone. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I went home to visit. My brother, Ryan, was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. My father was packing the living room, avoiding eye contact. Finally, I asked, "Dad, will you walk me down the aisle?" The silence felt like thunder. Then he said, without looking at me, "Emily, I can't. I don't have the means. I've made choices." Confused, I pressed him. That's when the truth slipped out. He had spent his savings, including the money he promised for my wedding, on bailing out Ryan again. Gambling debts, failed business attempts, reckless spending. My brother had drained him dry. I felt my chest tighten, as though the walls were closing in. "So you're telling me," I whispered, "that my dream doesn't matter, that walking me down the aisle, your only daughter, means less than saving Ryan's mess." Dad's face crumpled with guilt, but he didn't deny it. Ryan smirked from the couch, not even ashamed. That moment burned into me. My wedding wasn't ruined yet, but something inside me was. The betrayal of my own father, the arrogance of my brother, it lit a fire I didn't know I had. And I swore, if they thought I would stay silent, they had no idea what was coming next. The night after that confrontation, I couldn't sleep. My wedding binder lay open on the table, mocking me with its perfect plans, guest lists, floral designs, and even the song I had chosen for my aisle walk. Every page screamed of a dream that my own father had just crushed. Daniel noticed my swollen eyes the next morning. "Emily, what's wrong?" he asked, gently holding my hand. For a moment, I thought about hiding the truth, but the pain was too sharp to swallow. "My dad, he won't walk me down the aisle. He spent everything on Ryan, again." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had never been a fan of my brother, but out of respect for me, he usually kept quiet. This time, though, he couldn't. "Emily, this isn't just about the money. This is about respect. He chose Ryan's recklessness over your happiness, on your wedding day." His words echoed the anger I was trying to bury. I had always defended my dad, telling myself he was just trying to keep the family together. But maybe I had been blind. Later that week, I visited my childhood home again. My mother was in the kitchen, nervously stirring a pot she had already turned off. She looked at me with sad eyes, as if she carried a secret too heavy for words. "Mom," I asked, "why does Ryan always get away with everything? Why does Dad keep sacrificing for him, even when it destroys the rest of us?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because your father feels guilty. Years ago, Ryan almost got into trouble with the law and your dad bylaid him out. Since then, he's carried this responsibility. But it's killing him, and it's killing us too." Her words cut deeper than I expected. So it wasn't just favoritism. It was guilt, festering for years, eating away at my father's judgment. Still, that didn't excuse abandoning me on the most important day of my life. That night, I wrote in my journal, "If my father won't honor me, I'll honor myself. I won't let their choices overshadow my happiness. But I also won't forget. One day, they'll feel the weight of what they've done." My wedding was only a week away. Instead of joy, the countdown ticked with tension, secrets, and a growing fire inside me. And I knew I couldn't let this betrayal pass quietly. The week of my wedding should have been filled with dress fittings, laughter, and final touches. Instead, it was filled with silence from my father. He didn't call. He didn't show up to the rehearsal. It was as if I had already been erased from his world. Daniel tried to keep me calm, but every time I looked at the empty seat where my dad should have been during practice, my heart broke a little more. "Emily," Daniel said, "family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by loyalty, and you deserve loyalty." The night before the wedding, Ryan arrived uninvited at the bridal suite. He smelled like alcohol, his tie loose around his neck, and a smug grin across his face. "So little sis," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Still bitter that Dad chose me." I froze, clutching the edge of my dress. "Ryan, this isn't about you. It's about Dad betraying me." He laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "Betrayal? Please. Dad knows where real potential lies. You're marrying a middle-class lawyer while I'm chasing investments that could change the family forever. He sees me as the future. You're just settling down." His words were poison, dripping into the wound my father had already created. For years, Ryan had taken and taken, leaving chaos in his wake. And now, on the eve of my wedding, he dared to call me insignificant. "Get out, Ryan," I whispered, my voice trembling with rage. "Tomorrow is my day, you won't ruin it." But he only smirked. "We'll see about that." That night, I barely slept. My dreams were filled with flashes of Ryan storming into the ceremony, my father standing beside him, both of them turning their backs on me as I stood alone in my white dress. When the morning sun finally rose, I made a decision. If my father wouldn't walk me down the aisle, someone else would. Someone who had stood by me all my life. So I called my Aunt Claire, my mother's sister. She arrived within the hour, her eyes fierce with determination. "Emily," she said, "if your father won't give you away, I will, and I promise no one will take this moment from you." Her words steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt strength return to my heart. But deep inside, I knew the storm wasn't over. Ryan had promised trouble, and he had never been one to break his word. The wedding morning felt heavy with tension. Guests arrived dressed in pastel suits and elegant dresses, their chatter filling the small countryside chapel. But behind every smile, I felt the weight of my father's absence pressing down on me. As I stood in the bridal room, Aunt Claire held my hand tightly. "Emily," she said softly, "this day is yours. Don't let anyone, your father or your brother, steal it from you." Her words gave me courage, but a nervous knot twisted in my stomach. What if Ryan tried to interfere? What if my father made a dramatic entrance, choosing humiliation over silence? The music began. The doors opened. My heart pounded as Aunt Claire guided me down the aisle. Guests stood, their eyes on me, some whispering when they noticed my father wasn't by my side. Still, I held my head high, clinging to Aunt Claire's strength. Daniel's eyes met mine at the altar, warm, steady, and full of love. In that moment, I almost forgot the storm waiting outside the chapel walls. Almost. Because just as the ceremony began, the heavy doors creaked open. Ryan stumbled in, late and uninvited, his tie crooked, a glass of whiskey still in his hand. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Well, look at this fairy tale," Ryan sneered, his voice slurred but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dad sends his regards, Emily. He said he'd rather fund my next deal than waste money on your small-town romance." A hush fell over the room. My face burned with shame, but I refused to let him win. "Ryan," I said firmly, my voice carrying across the chapel, "this isn't your stage. Leave now before you embarrass yourself any further." He laughed, raising his glass. "Embarrass myself? No, Emily, the embarrassment is yours. Dad chose me over you, and everyone here knows it." For a moment, I thought my legs would give out, but then Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight with fury. "This wedding is about love and commitment, not your greed, Ryan. You've already taken enough from Emily. You won't take her happiness, too." The guests nodded in agreement, some even clapping softly. Ryan's smirk faltered. He looked around, realizing for the first time that he wasn't the center of the universe anymore. With one last glare, he stormed out, slamming the doors behind him. I exhaled, tears slipping down my cheeks, not of pain this time, but of relief. The ceremony continued, but I knew Ryan's exit wasn't the end. His hunger for power, fueled by my father's blind loyalty, would bring him back. And next time I wouldn't just defend myself. I would fight back. The weeks after my wedding were bittersweet. Daniel and I returned from our short honeymoon to a modest apartment in the city, ready to start our new life together. On the surface, everything should have felt perfect, but Ryan's cruel interruption at the chapel still haunted me, and worse, my father's silence screamed louder than words. Not once did he call. Not once did he ask how the wedding went. Instead, I heard from cousins that he was busy funding Ryan's new venture, a string of nightclubs that reeked of corruption. The very money he refused to spend on his daughter's wedding had been poured recklessly into Ryan's hands. One rainy evening, I sat by the window, my wedding photos spread out before me. Aunt Claire appeared in nearly every picture, her smile radiant as she held me close. My father, on the other hand, was a ghost, absent, unspoken, and unforgiven. Daniel wrapped his arms around me. "Emily," he whispered, "you can't let their choices destroy you, but if you want justice, we'll find it together." His words sparked something inside me. For so long, I had swallowed the pain, believing silence was strength. But now, I realized that silence had only given Ryan and my father more power. It was time to speak. It was time to act. The opportunity came faster than I expected. A local journalist, Maria Lopez, reached out to me after hearing whispers about my father's favoritism and Ryan's shady business dealings. She wanted the truth, an exclusive story that could expose everything. At first, I hesitated. Could I really air my family's secrets for the world to see? But then I thought about my wedding day, about Ryan barging in with his whiskey and my father's cruel regards, about the years of neglect, the sacrifices I made while Ryan drowned himself in selfish indulgence. Yes, I could tell the truth, and I would. So I agreed to meet Maria at a small cafe. My hands shook as I slid a folder across the table, proof of bank transfers, emails, and even a letter my father had written Ryan, promising to always prioritize my son's legacy. Maria's eyes widened. "Emily, this is going to change everything." I sipped my coffee, a flicker of fear mixed with a strange, burning satisfaction. "Good," I said, "because they've hidden in the shadows long enough." I didn't know what storm was about to follow, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. The article hit the newsstands 2 weeks later. The headline was bold, impossible to ignore. Father bankrupts daughter's future to fund son's greed. My name was in the piece, but I wasn't hiding anymore. I told Maria everything: the wedding, the humiliation, the years of sacrifice, and my father's blind obsession with Ryan. The story spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered, relatives called, and soon the whole town knew the truth I had carried like a scar. Ryan's reputation collapsed overnight. His nightclubs, already teetering on the edge, lost investors. Business partners pulled out, and by the end of the month, Ryan was drowning in debt. The same arrogance that had fueled him now left him stranded. And my father, he couldn't escape either. His name was dragged into every conversation, every headline. People who once praised him now turned away. For the first time in my life, he was forced to look at himself in the mirror and see the damage he had done. One evening, as Daniel and I returned home, I found a letter slipped under our door. The handwriting was unmistakable, my father's. "Emily, I was wrong. I see it now. I betrayed you and I betrayed myself. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm proud of the woman you've become. Ryan has fallen, and perhaps I must fall too. Take care of yourself. That's all I ask." "Dad." I held the paper, my hands trembling. For years, I had dreamed of those words, but now they felt too little, too late. Daniel looked at me softly. "What will you do?" I took a deep breath. "I'll do nothing. His choices built this ruin. Mine will build something better. That night, I tucked the letter away, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. A reminder that I had survived the pain, the betrayal, and the abandonment. And though my father refused to walk me down the aisle, I had walked myself into strength, into freedom, into a future where his shadow no longer controlled me. My wedding day had been scarred by his absence, but my life would be defined by my presence. For the first time, I felt whole. The father's betrayal led to his downfall. The brother's greed ruined him, but Emily's truth and courage gave her a life stronger than either of them could ever destroy.